place reminds me of Santa's workshop.
Well, hit this place a geographical oddity.
I'll tell you, mate, if every town in the world were like this one, no man would ever feel unwanted.
Travel oddities.
Odd Spot.
Welcome to the Spotsville, Kentucky edition of Odd Spots on Travel Oddities podcast. It's me, Brett. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. It's Black Friday. Are you still out there getting it, or is that just not your bag? Well, if it's not your bag, then you're in luck, because we've got some more stories. You know, Spotsville didn't end in 1975. There have been sightings and weird happenings all the way up until the mid-2000s. So we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. Also, a story from Bart Nunley, not necessarily in the Spotsville area, but in the surrounding areas there in Kentucky. If you remember, the Nunleys were the original family from the 1975 Spotsville Monster story. Also going to talk a little bit about Bart Nunley. He wrote a 137-page script based on his experience as a kid. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get it cracking. Let's get right into some of these stories that have happened more recently in the Spotsville area. What do you say? All right, January 20th, 2006, Green River in the Spotsville area. All right, so Bart Nunley not only experienced these things firsthand, but he became a Bigfoot researcher, and in the process has interviewed people since 1975 incident. And in one such case, January 20th, 2006, he interviewed Adam Candler about an instance that happened near the Green River in Spotsville, Kentucky. On the evening of July 14th, 2005, 22-year-old Adam Candler was driving down Green River Road, number 2, just off T.S. Charner Road in Spotsville, Kentucky. That's in Henderson County, when he noticed a large, dark object stooping down in the roadside ditch. When his vehicle approached within a few yards, the object suddenly stood up and ran on 2 legs into the nearby field. It was a 7 to 8 foot tall creature, he said, and it looked like a man with slightly longer arms covered all over with black hair. Now, due to the passage of several months since the sighting took place, a subsequent field investigation into the area took place for possible substantiating evidence, most likely yield little, if anything. The witness did state that 2 other members of his family and one of his personal friends have seen the same creature, known locally as the Spotsville Monster, in the same general area. Investigation is ongoing, and attempts to contact other witnesses are currently in progress. I'm sorry, something crawls out of the ditch. I'm not going to stick around long enough to see where it goes. I'll tell you that much. So fast forward a little bit. December 23rd, 2012, Cheney Road, Spotsville, Kentucky. Chris and Tyler have their own encounter with the Spotsville Monster. As the vehicle topped a small hill just before a bridge crossing, the 2 young men in the front seat saw a bright yellow eye shine directly ahead in the road. Right there, I don't go any further at that point. I mean, I literally turned the car around, but I digress. 2 things immediately caught their attention. One was the huge size of the eyes. Second was the height of the eyes. Both individuals were temporarily stunned as to what they were seeing. They began to slow down and try to see what exactly was ahead in the road. It was extremely dark, and all they could see was the distinct eye shine, and that it was a tall, shadowy outline of a figure at least 7 to 8 feet tall and covered in what appeared to be either jet black hair or fur. Now, all of these events mentioned are happening in mere seconds, according to the witnesses. Quickly, the eye shine seemed to suggest that the creature looked at the vehicle and looked away twice, as if it was confused momentarily as to what to do as the vehicle was getting closer to it. Then the figure seemed to take only 2 steps from left to right, east to west, however you look at it, and was instantly out of the road and gone from sight. The driver was so shocked that he sped away from the location. After about an hour passed and they tried to understand what they had seen, they built up enough courage to go back to the same spot. Why? Why do you do that? No, stay away. I've seen enough. I've seen enough. I can live to tell the tale. That's all I need. But that's just me. They discovered that the creature was most likely almost on the bridge itself when they first saw its eye shine. And then they noticed that the direction the creature had exited was at the foot of the steep embankment, about 6 feet high. This means that in 2 steps, the creature literally just seemed to walk up the steep incline and disappear from sight. Both witnesses were extremely amazed at this possible feat and related that to Bart Nunley several times. Neither witness were believers in Bigfoot before the event, but both stated that soon as they saw the shadowy figure, that was the first thing that entered their minds, as it appeared to be exactly like pictures and drawings of Bigfoot they had seen in the past. Again, I'm not going back to the scene of crime. I'm done with it. I've seen enough. I live to tell the tale. That's all I'm saying. So, moving on. Now, Spotsville in Kentucky isn't just known for its Bigfoot. There have been numerous UFO sightings, a lot of paranormal. It's a paranormal hotspot. Now, there's one place in particular that's kind of adjacent to Spotsville. It's Smith Mills. It's in Henderson County, an area called Burbanks Lake. This is going to sound familiar to you because this Burbanks Lake area is a hotbed of activity. And finally, we have a firsthand account from Bart Nunley. Again, we go back to Bart Nunley, one of the original Nunleys from the 75 Spotsville Monster incident. Now, this is a firsthand account that took place in Smith Mills. That's in Henderson County, at a little place called Burbanks Lake. There's a place in Smith Mills, Henderson County, Kentucky, called Burbanks Lake. Also known locally as Spook Hill. As you might guess by the name, down through the years, it's garnered a reputation for being haunted. I believe it to be a window location, as many inexplicable experiences have taken place in this area, including various cryptid sightings like Bigfoot, water monsters, giant birds, and black panthers. Now, UFO activity is not uncommon here either. There are many ghost stories associated with Spook Hill as well. Leading to this, the fact that there are two very old cemeteries to be found, long since reclaimed by the forest on the hilltop. Also situated there between the main cemetery and the slave cemetery are three ancient lakes. One is fairly big and deep, and all were rumored to contain monster bass. Man, I love to fish. All the male members of my family love to fish as well. One day back in the summer of '87, we decided to go and fish there. This was totally against our dad's better judgment. He lived near the area, and when he was younger, he'd been personally warned by Mr. Burbank never to let the dark catch him there. He never said why. Also, my older half-brother had told us a scary story about a time he and a brother-in-law had went night fishing in a boat a few years just before. He claimed that every time the two tried to land the boat and come ashore to leave, the woods would erupt with a sound of breaking branches and heavy footsteps. At the point in which they were heading the boat for shore, it forced them to shove back out in the middle of the lake. Every attempt to leave the lake was met with resistance, which frightened them both, and they were forced to spend the entire night in the boat, far from shore. Only when dawn broke, when the two were allowed to leave, which they did, all in haste, never to return. This intrigued me to no end. Green as I was back then, but the lure of a trophy bass enticed us all. We arrived at the lake in the early afternoon and headed through the trees down to the water. We've been able to procure a one-man bass boat with a small trolling motor from a friend. It could hold two people, but barely, just barely, as there were 6 of us, 4 brothers and 2 friends. This meant that 4 of us would be confined to the fishing banks. We found the place to be absolutely teeming with water moccasins, and not one of us brought a weapon of any type, only fishing poles. Since everyone wanted to fish the other side of the lake, we opted to be ferried across instead of trying to walk through the grass and trying to avoid a possible snake bite. It took forever for the little motor to chug everyone across the lake. By the time we were there, it was late afternoon. We fished a while, without much luck. Before we knew it, darkness was fast approaching. This took around 30 to 40 minutes a round trip, with 5 trips to be made. Complete darkness fell, with just my younger brother and myself remaining on the far side of the lake. We had a half a gallon of kerosene and had earlier gathered what wood we could find, which was mostly wet since it rained there a couple days previously, and used it to build a small fire. We were sitting there, bemoaning so much trouble for nothing, when the sound of breaking branches and footsteps erupted from the woods in front of us. It was a terrifyingly loud commotion, and we jumped up in fright. I've never before since been so terrified by any type of sound. It was, looking back, totally unlike me to react in such a manner. Perhaps it was because of the first limb fracture we both knew immediately what was out there, darkness of the haunted woods. Worse, the sound soon began to come from behind us and to our right as well, and they were getting closer. We heard no grunts, no growls, no breathing, just the heavy footfalls and the terrific explosions of tree limbs all around. We thought we were both going to die that night without a doubt. We could see nothing and it was quite dark. No moon and heavy cloud cover. When the sounds got quite close, I threw some kerosene in the fire, determined to at least see what was about to eat us. Caro ignited and the fire flared up, illuminating an area about 25 feet in all directions. We could see nothing. The light would only last for a few seconds and then subside and plunge our surroundings back into utter darkness. When this happened, the sounds would approach us again, over and over. I threw the fuel into the shrinking fire, washing the woods in sudden firelight. We never did see a thing, not even a single eye shine. Kerosene didn't last long. We'd been yelling and making a good-sized noise of our own, but to no avail. It seemed that the only light was holding our would-be attackers at bay. Fire was fading fast. Soon it was reduced to a tiny flame at one end of a small, wet branch, and the noises were closing in. I picked it up and held it up in front of me as we walked backwards down towards the water's edge. I told my brother to get ready to swim for his life. Amazingly, the noises followed us down the lake. Even though this area had very few trees, it sounded like invisible branches were being broken by invisible beings. Lucky for us, just as we were about to get wet, we heard the sound of our brother on the boat shouting his approach. We yelled for him to hurry. When he reached us, we were in a state of agitation, to say the very least. He wanted to know who was next. Well, to put it simply, we found out one-man boat can carry 3 people in an emergency. Well, there you go, Bart Nunley with his firsthand account of Burbank Lake. It sounds like not a lake that I'm interested in. And if you're forcing me back into the water, you know me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm probably going to drown. Well, there you have it. That is your odd spot for Black Friday. Ha ha ha, we made it, baby. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, then I hope you had a good Thursday off. If you didn't have the day off, I hope that you're alive to hear this recording. Otherwise, Travel Oddities back at you on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Hey, if you got suggestions for the show, you know what to do. Give us a call on the odd line, 7865-ODDITY. Check us out, traveloddities.com. Hey, get your T-shirts, by the way. Black Friday deals going on right now at tpublic.com. Go to our website, click on the shop link, and get yourself a $14 tee while they last. Black Friday deals flying off the shelves. Well, anyway, I'm Brett. It's been an odd spot on Travel Oddities Podcast. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next week. Stay odd. Peace.